In a courtroom already heavy with tension, Erika Kirk just made a move no one saw coming, and it could change everything as the trial surrounding the accused killer of Charlie Kirk unfolds. Most eyes have been fixed on prosecutors, evidence, and witnesses. But now, Erika Kirk has stepped forward with a bold legal maneuver that's sending shockwaves through both the courtroom and public opinion. This isn't a quiet filing or a routine. Objection. It's a calculated strategy that challenges how this case has been framed from the very beginning. By pushing back against key assumptions, questioning the narrative, and forcing the court to confront uncomfortable legal gray areas, Erika's move raises a powerful question. Is this trial really about justice, or about speed, pressure, and optics? Legal experts are already divided. Some say the move is risky and could backfire under intense scrutiny. Others argue it's the first moment in this case that truly puts the system itself on trial. What's undeniable is this: the dynamics have shifted. Jurors are paying closer attention. The prosecution is on alert, and the defense now faces a landscape that looks very different from just days ago. One decision, one filing, one bold stand, and suddenly, the outcome of this trial feels far less predictable than anyone expected. The trial surrounding the accused killer of Charlie Kirk has been intense from the very start. But until recently, the direction of the case felt predictable. Prosecutors appeared confident, the charges were severe, and public opinion, shaped heavily by headlines and social media commentary, seemed to lean in one clear direction. Then came Erika Kirk's bold legal move, and suddenly, what looked like a straightforward path to a verdict turned into a complex legal chess match to understand. Why Erika Kirk's action matters so much. You have to understand the atmosphere surrounding this case. Charlie Kirk was a high-profile figure whose name alone carries political, cultural, and emotional weight. His death sparked outrage, grief, and immediate calls for justice. In cases like this, the legal system doesn't operate in a vacuum. Every argument, every objection, and every filing exists under the pressure of public expectation. That pressure can quietly shape narratives long before a jury ever deliberates. From day one, the prosecution built its case around a simple, emotionally powerful storyline: a violent act, a clear suspect, and a demand for accountability. This is a common strategy, especially in high-profile cases. Jurors are human. Simplicity makes cases easier to understand, easier to remember, and easier to decide. But simplicity can also hide gaps, assumptions, and unresolved questions. That is where Erika Kirk enters the picture. Rather than focusing solely on defending against individual pieces of evidence, Erika's legal strategy appears to challenge the foundation of the prosecution's case. Instead of arguing only about what happened, she is pushing the court to slow down and ask how conclusions were reached, why certain interpretations were favored, and whether critical legal standards were followed without bias or shortcut. At the center of her move is a legal argument that forces the court to examine procedural integrity. In plain terms, Erika is saying before deciding guilt or innocence, the court must first decide whether the process itself has been fair, lawful, and constitutionally sound. That may sound technical, but it's one of the most powerful tools in criminal defense. In high-stakes trials, procedural errors often become invisible to the public. They don't trend on social media, and they don't carry emotional punch. But in a courtroom, they can be everything: evidence collected improperly, statements obtained under questionable conditions, or investigative steps influenced by external pressure can all undermine a case, sometimes entirely. What makes Erika Kirk's move especially bold is the timing. She didn't wait until the end of the trial. She didn't quietly reserve these arguments for appeal. She brought them forward while the case is still unfolding, effectively forcing prosecutors to defend not just their evidence, but their methods. This immediately changes the power dynamic. Prosecutors now have to do more than tell a convincing story. They must demonstrate discipline, transparency, and adherence to strict legal standards. Any hesitation, inconsistency, or defensive reaction can plant seeds of doubt not just in the jury, but in the judge's mind as well. Legal analysts watching the case have noted that this strategy carries serious risk. If the judge rejects Erika's arguments outright, it could strengthen the prosecution's position and make the defense appear desperate or obstructive. But if even a small portion of her concerns are validated, the ripple effects could be massive. For the jury, this moment is critical. Jurors often enter trials with unspoken assumptions, especially in cases that have received widespread attention. Erika's move subtly invites them to step back and reconsider those assumptions. It reframes the case from "Did this person do it?" to "Are we absolutely sure the system got this right?" That shift is powerful. Another key element of Erika Kirk's approach is how it addresses public narrative without directly confronting it. Instead of arguing in emotional terms or attempting to sway public opinion through statements outside the courtroom, her strategy stays grounded in legal principles. This can make her appear calm, calculated, and credible, qualities that often resonate with judges and jurors alike at the same time. Her move sends a clear message. This defense will not be rushed, intimidated, or boxed into a predetermined storyline. In trials involving prominent figures, there is often an unspoken urgency to reach closure quickly. Erika's legal action pushes back against that urgency and insists that justice cannot be accelerated without consequences. It's also important to note that Erika Kirk's role in this case is deeply personal. While she operates as a legal actor within the courtroom, her last name alone ties her to the emotional gravity of the situation. That makes every move she makes subject to heightened scrutiny. Critics question motive. Supporters see courage. Neutral observers watch closely for any sign of bias or overreach. This dual reality, legal precision on one hand and emotional symbolism on the other, makes her move even more significant. She is not just challenging a case. She is navigating a minefield of perception, expectation, and interpretation. As part one of this trial unfolds, one thing is already clear. Erika Kirk has ensured that this case will not be remembered as routine. Whether her strategy ultimately succeeds or fails, it has forced the legal system to pause and examine itself under a microscope. And in a trial where the stakes are this high, that pause may be the most consequential moment of all. As the trial moves forward, the impact of Erika Kirk's legal maneuver becomes clearer, not just in legal filings, but in the subtle shifts inside the courtroom. Body language changes. Questioning becomes sharper. Even the pace of proceedings feels different. What once looked like a prosecution-driven process now feels more balanced, more contested, far more uncertain. One of the most important consequences of Erika's move is how it reframes credibility. In any major criminal trial, credibility is currency. Prosecutors rely on it to convince jurors that their version of events is not only plausible but reliable. The defense, meanwhile, works to expose cracks, small inconsistencies that can grow into reasonable doubt, by challenging procedure and narrative at the same time. Erika forces the prosecution to defend how they know what they claim to know. This is where things get uncomfortable. When prosecutors are asked to justify investigative decisions, timelines, and priorities, they can no longer lean solely on the emotional weight of the case. They must explain why certain leads were followed while others were dismissed. They must clarify why specific evidence was emphasized and whether alternative interpretations were fully considered. Even when those explanations are valid, the act of explaining them opens space for doubt. For jurors, that space matters. Jurors are often instructed to focus only on evidence presented in court, but they don't arrive as blank slates. Many already carry impressions shaped by media coverage, online discourse, and public reaction. Erika Kirk's strategy subtly disrupts that conditioning. By highlighting process over conclusion, she gives jurors permission to question not just the defendant's actions, but the system's confidence. Another critical element of Part 2 is the psychological dimension of the trial. High-profile cases generate pressure not just for the accused, but for everyone involved. Investigators feel it. Prosecutors feel it. Judges feel it. Erika's legal move shines a light on how that pressure may have influenced decisions early in the case. Even if no misconduct occurred, the mere possibility of rushed judgment becomes a factor. Jurors cannot ignore. Legal experts following the case have pointed out that this is a classic but underused defense approach. Rather than attempting to prove an alternative version of events outright, the defense focuses on destabilizing certainty. In criminal law, the burden is not to prove innocence beyond a doubt, but to show that guilt has not been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Erika's approach aligns perfectly with that. Standard. What also stands out is how controlled and disciplined the strategy appears. There is no theatrics, no emotional outbursts, no attempts to win sympathy through spectacle. That restraint can be powerful. It signals confidence. It suggests that the defense believes the law itself, when properly applied, is enough. At the same time, critics argue that this approach risks alienating jurors who want clear answers rather than legal complexity. Some jurors may feel frustrated by arguments that seem technical or abstract. Erika is walking a fine line, educating the jury without overwhelming them, slowing the process without appearing obstructive. The prosecution, for its part, has responded by doubling down on narrative clarity. Witness examinations become more focused. Language becomes more precise. There is an obvious effort to reassert control and reassure the jury that the case remains strong despite procedural challenges. This back and forth is not a sign of weakness on either side. It is the system working as intended. Yet the emotional undercurrent cannot be ignored, because the case involves a well-known name and intense public interest. Every courtroom moment carries symbolic weight. Erika Kirk's presence alone reminds jurors that this is not just a legal battle, but a human one. Her actions are scrutinized not only for legal merit, but for what they represent as defiance, and a refusal to accept easy conclusions as Part 2 unfolds. The judge's role becomes increasingly important. Judicial responses to objections, motions, and arguments send subtle signals to the jury. A sustained objection here, a careful clarification. These moments shape how jurors interpret the seriousness of Erika's claims. Even neutrality can be meaningful. What's becoming increasingly clear is that this trial will not hinge on a single piece of evidence or a dramatic revelation. Instead, it will turn on accumulation, small questions piling up, minor uncertainties stacking together, and jurors slowly realizing that certainty may be harder to reach than they expected. That is the true power of Erika Kirk's bold legal move. She has transformed the trial from a march toward an expected outcome into a genuine deliberation, one where every assumption must be earned, every claim must be supported, and every shortcut is exposed. Whether the jury ultimately sides with the prosecution or the defense, they will do so with a heightened awareness of what justice demands as the trial enters its final stages. The courtroom tension has reached a fever pitch. Erika Kirk's bold legal maneuver continues to reverberate, not only influencing how evidence is examined, but also reshaping the overall narrative of the case. What once seemed like a straightforward prosecution has evolved into a complex legal drama where every word, every objection, and every piece of testimony is scrutinized through a sharper lens. One of the most striking effects of Erika's move is the subtle shift in jury perception. Jurors who may have initially approached the trial with fixed assumptions now find themselves pausing to reconsider. They are being asked to question the certainty of the prosecution's claims, to weigh procedural integrity alongside factual evidence, and to acknowledge that even high-profile cases are subject to human error. This recalibration is critical because in criminal law, reasonable doubts is the defense's most powerful tool. Erika's strategy has also amplified media and public attention, though she herself remains focused on the law rather than spectacle. News outlets, social media commentators, and legal analysts are dissecting every move, highlighting her refusal to let the case be rushed or simplified. While some critics argue that this approach risks alienating jurors who want clear answers, others praise it as a masterclass in strategic defense. It's one that prioritizes the long-term pursuit of justice over short-term theatrics. The prosecution, aware of the stakes, has responded with renewed rigor. Witness examinations are sharper, arguments are more precise, and the team is clearly under pressure to reinforce their case while addressing Erika's challenges. Yet even with these efforts, the courtroom dynamic has shifted. The defense no longer plays a reactive role. It is shaping the pace, tone, and focus of proceedings. Emotionally, the trial remains heavy. Charlie Kirk's legacy, the grief of family and friends, and the intense public scrutiny create an environment where every action is amplified. Erika Kirk's presence and legal boldness add another layer. They represent not only a defense strategy, but a challenge to the assumption that justice should be hurried in high-profile cases. In doing so, she underscores a fundamental principle. The law is not about convenience or narrative appeal. It's about fairness and integrity. As the trial approaches its conclusion, one thing is clear. Erika Kirk's intervention has changed the course of this case. By emphasizing process, procedure, and accountability, she has ensured that the jury must confront uncertainty, examine evidence critically, and resist the pull of preconceived notions. Whether the verdict ultimately favors the prosecution or the defense, the trial will be remembered not just for its outcome, but for the way it tested the system itself. Erika Kirk's bold move serves as a reminder that in the pursuit of justice, courage, strategy, and timing can be just as influential as evidence or testimony. In this courtroom, nothing is as predictable as it seemed at the outset. That unpredictability may very well be the most just outcome of all. The trial of Charlie Kirk's accused killer has captivated the nation. But at its core, it's a story about justice, accountability, and the power of bold action. Erika Kirk's legal move shows that one person can challenge assumptions, demand fairness, and force the system to uphold its own standards. It's a reminder that the law is not just about speed, headlines, or pressure. It's about doing what's right, even when it's difficult for those following the case. This is a pivotal moment to reflect. Justice requires attention, scrutiny, and courage. Erika's strategy isn't just a courtroom tactic. It's an example of standing firm in the face of public pressure, of insisting that every detail matters, and that no case, no matter how high profile, should be rushed or simplified as the trial moves toward its conclusion. The outcome remains uncertain, but Erika Kirk's impact is undeniable. She has reshaped the conversation, forced critical questions, and reminded everyone that fairness is not optional. Stay informed, watch closely, and think critically. This trial is far from over, and the lessons it offers go beyond the courtroom. Whether you're a legal enthusiast, a justice advocate, or simply a concerned observer, Erika Kirk's bold action is a moment worth remembering and discussing. Justice is not just observed, it's demanded.